Busting loose from the money game. Mind-blowing strategies from changing the rules of a game you can't win. By Robert Scheinfeld. Forward. Throughout history, across ages and generations, there have been beliefs and assumptions that people of the time accepted as true and never questioned for their ultimate truthfulness or accuracy. Then, later in history, it turned out many of those beliefs and assumptions were not true, so people had to revise their views of the world and adopt a new set of beliefs and assumptions. For example, there was a time when people thought the world was flat, but we later found out that was wrong. There was a time when people thought the earth was at the very center of the universe and everything else revolved around us, but we later found out that was wrong too. If you study the history of the medical profession, you'll find all kinds of beliefs and assumptions about how the body works, what disease is, and how to heal the body that we later found out were false. If you study science, whatever branch you choose, physics, chemistry, biology, astronomy, and so on, you see the same pattern repeating. You see a stream of beliefs, assumptions, and models scientists were once absolutely certain were truthful and accurate, but which later turned out to be false. As a result, scientists constantly revise their theories and models. So, presumably, if history is any guide, most of what we take for granted about the world simply isn't true. But in any given age or generation, we get so locked into the prevailing beliefs and assumptions without even realizing it that we often blind ourselves to the truth. One of the largest sets of beliefs and assumptions we've all accepted as true and never questioned is what Bob calls the money game. The beliefs and assumptions underlying the money game have been in place for as long as there has been money. In fact, they may have survived fully intact longer than any other set of beliefs and assumptions in history. You could say the money game has been something of a sacred cow. In Chapter 1, Bob discusses the beliefs, assumptions, rules, and regulations underlying the money game. As you participate in that discussion, it will seem perfectly normal and reasonable to believe they are all truthful and accurate. Of course, that's how it works, you'll probably say to yourself. However, as you'll soon see, none of the rules and regulations you've been taught about the money game and none of the beliefs and assumptions underlying those rules and regulations are true, no matter how natural, logical, or reasonable they may seem at first blush. I've spent most of my life playing the money game. In fact, I started playing it at the age of 10 when I began a newspaper route in my neighborhood. 6 months later, I began pumping spring water into gallon jugs at a nearby park and delivered the water to the homes of neighbors in my wagon. I later became a masterful player of the money game. However, as Bob says, no matter how well you play it, and no matter how much money you pile up as you play, there's always a major price to pay in the form of stress, anxiety, pain, loss of something else that's important to you, or disillusionment. If you play according to the rules, regulations, and the structure you are taught growing up. In my own life, despite numerous achievements I'm very proud of, like the Chicken Soup for the Soul series having sold 100 million copies in 41 languages around the world, a Guinness Book World Record, and numerous honors and awards, and despite being able to accumulate lots of money, I always did pay a big price. like the many times I spent 6 or more tiring months on the road, away from family and friends, launching a new book series or other project. As a result, like Bob and so many others, the better I got at playing the money game, the more I noticed a growing desire to find a new way of playing and a new set of rules that would still enable me to create and experience abundance, but also empower me to wrap it up in a decidedly different package with zero price to pay. When the time comes for an old set of beliefs and assumptions to give way to a new one, it always starts out with a single individual saying, "No, that's not right. This is what's true." Invariably, that individual is resisted, criticized, even attacked viciously. But a few people still listen and see the truth, then a few more, then a few more, until it reaches a critical mass. Then the old way of thinking collapses and the new way of thinking explodes into mass consciousness. My prediction is that the transformational insights and busting loose process you're about to discover will be the start of a revolution that ultimately collapses the old beliefs and assumptions about abundance and the money game and creates a worldwide explosion of new possibility and opportunity. Interestingly enough, although Bob is the lone voice speaking about a new truth at the moment, he's not being resisted, criticized, or attacked. Quite the contrary. People all over the world are resonating with his message of an alternative to the traditional money game and joyously exploring a new way of creating and experiencing total abundance. Have you ever said words like this to yourself? "I wish someone had told me that a long time ago." If so, you know what it's like to discover something that radically changes your life in the blink of an eye. As you prepare to read this book, take a deep breath, buckle your seatbelt, and get ready to blink. Jack Canfield, CEO, Chicken Soup for the Soul Enterprises, co-creator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, co-author of the Success Principles, How to Get from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. Introduction. What child unable to sleep on a warm summer night hasn't thought he saw Peter Pan's sailing ship in the sky? I will teach you to see that ship. Roberto Contreneau, when a child on a summer morning. Truth has a way of reaching the soul of the seeker, even though the outer garments may temporarily distract the gaze. Joseph Whitfield. What I'm about to share with you in this book is going to go against the grain of everything you've learned since childhood, and most likely everything you believe to be true all your life. As you read the first 7 chapters, you may feel like you've entered the Twilight Zone or a science fiction movie. You may also have thoughts like this. What does this have to do with money? Get to the point, will you? Is he crazy? He can't be serious. This isn't what I expected when I bought this book. No way. Or my personal favorite, bullshit. You may chuckle, but please take this word seriously because in a few short minutes, if you continue reading right now, thoughts like that may come up for you, and I don't want them to distract you or delay your progress toward busting loose from the money game. You may feel, at times, overwhelmed, disoriented, skeptical, angry, or comfortable. That's all to be expected. You can't bust loose from the money game without a radical shift in your perceptions about yourself, other people, the world, and the strategies you use on a daily basis. The process of making a radical shift like that pushes all kinds of buttons. That's why I subtitled this book, Mind-Blowing Strategies for Changing the Rules of a Game You Can't Win. However, if you're like most people I speak with about the busting loose process, no matter how much resistance you may feel from one part of yourself, another part will be whispering to you, "That's true, and somehow I've always known it." No matter how far out there what I'll be sharing may seem at first, the journey I'm going to take you on and the ultimate destination you can reach after taking it are very real. My friend and mentor, whom I refer to as BW because he prefers to remain anonymous, busted loose from the money game. I busted loose myself into the new way of living I describe in chapter 13, and I've been quietly teaching others from around the world to do it too. Busting loose is very real and very possible for you to do also. If you follow the action steps I give you at the end of the book, and you still want or need it, you'll be able to get all the proofs you want of the truthfulness and validity of what I share from your own experiences. This is a key point I'll be discussing in greater detail in later chapters. The book has 6 sections. 1. Background on how I made the discovery and breakthrough that led to it. 2. The rules of the game. 3. The philosophy that opens the door to busting loose from the money game. 4. The science that documents and validates the philosophy. 5. The specific, practical, simple, yet incredibly powerful action steps flowing out of that philosophy and science that can be taken to transform your life and finances in ways you can't even imagine right now. In this section, I'll also be sharing real-world stories to illustrate what everything I shared in the philosophy and science segments looks and feels like. 6. An invitation for you to take a leap of faith, apply what you discover here, prove its validity and power to yourself, and open up to a new and radically different way of life. We begin with the background in this introduction. Please go back now and reread step number 5 before you continue. Why? Because it's going to take me a while to go through the philosophy and science that make the practical action steps possible. You may feel impatient for me to get to the meat from time to time. I want you to remember we are ultimately headed for extremely practical application in your daily life. And I promise you that when we get to the practical aspects of the busting loose process, you'll understand and be extremely grateful for the foundation I laid to make them possible. Many people who enter my orbit and discover what you are about to discover in this book ultimately ask me, "Where did you get this stuff?" I reply by saying this: the only way I can answer you is to compare it to the assembly of a jigsaw puzzle. You take a piece here, a piece there, another piece here, another piece there. By themselves, they don't look like much, but as you assemble more and more pieces, the big picture starts to come into view. Then, as more and more pieces get assembled, the complete picture ultimately pops into clear view. No one personal source gave me all the pieces, but I kept searching for, collecting, and assembling the pieces. Then, one day, the complete picture you are about to discover popped into view and blew me away, as it'll blow you away if you allow it to. The first puzzle pieces came from the amazing grandfather I had growing up. His name was Aaron Scheinfeld. He took a simple idea and turned it into a Fortune 500 company you've probably heard of, Manpower, Inc. the world's largest temporary health service. As I grew up, I became aware there was something very unusual behind the gigantic success he'd created and the fortune he'd amassed. Some mystery about it that either no one in the family knew or they weren't talking about. When I was 12, every chance I got, I'd pepper him with questions, trying to uncover what the big secret and mystery was. For the better part of a year, he put me off. Then, while the extended family was on a trip to Cranes, Switzerland, to celebrate my grandfather's 70th birthday, he invited me to join him for a cup of hot chocolate and finally told me his story. On that day, he started me on the path of understanding two critical truths that changed my life forever. 1. There are hidden forces driving what happens in the world that few people ever find out about. 2. By understanding and learning to tap those hidden forces, tremendous power can be unleashed and used to create literal miracles in your life. Books and lectures throughout history have been filled with similar messages, but the way my grandfather defined hidden forces and the specific ways he went about tapping these forces were very different. So if those words sound familiar, stick with me because I'm going to take them in a decidedly different direction. Good news and bad news came from that first meeting with my grandfather in the small cafe in Cranes, Switzerland. The good news is he began teaching me about the true nature of the hidden forces and mentoring me on how to tap them. The bad news is he died 7 months later before he could complete my education. So I spent 35 years applying what he taught me and following the many clues he left, working diligently to find the missing puzzle pieces and assemble them into the complete system I believe he would have given me had he lived to do so. During those 35 years, I found many of the missing puzzle pieces. I assembled them into a system applied to become a master and playing the money game. In the early days of my career, I applied the system to become a top salesperson for a computer reseller and produced extraordinary results as a sales manager, corporate communications manager, regional manager, director of marketing, vice president of marketing, consultant, and entrepreneur. I later applied the system to create and execute a marketing model that packed rooms at Tony Robbins' multimedia seminars and fueled the growth of a computer store franchise company called Connecting Point of America from $90 million to $350 million in very profitable sales in less than 3 years. As I continued applying my system, I amassed my own fortune, but then crashed and burned and ended up $153,000 in debt. I later recovered and rebuilt my fortune even bigger than before. Among the many projects contributing to my second fortune, I grew Blue Ocean Software from $1.27 million to $44.3 million in just 4 years, resulting in the company being named 3 times to Inc. magazine's Inc. 500 list. That tremendous growth, accompanied by staggering profitability, led to Blue Ocean being acquired by software giant Intuit for $177 million, a substantial chunk of which went into my pocket as a reward for my efforts. Along that journey, I wrote 2 best-selling books that review the puzzle pieces I'd collected at the time. My first book was The Invisible Path to Success, and the second was The 11th Element. A year after selling Blue Ocean Software, however, after I'd piled up even more money from a series of business successes that followed it, I watched as large chunks of my wealth started disappearing again. I stopped myself and said, "This doesn't make any sense. This must be something I'm missing here." To use a popular phrase from Alice in Wonderland and the movie The Matrix, I realized I had to go even deeper down the rabbit hole. When I crashed and burned the first time, it was just me, no wife, no kids. Losing everything was excruciatingly painful, but I've always had a high threshold for pain. However, I now had a wife and 2 children, and we'd carved out a life and a lifestyle that made us extremely happy. If I crashed and burned again, I knew the pain would be unbearable and would be felt by my family too. So I was scared and became obsessed with finding out what I still didn't know. I went exploring again, absolutely committed to finding the final missing puzzle pieces I believed my grandfather had, but which I obviously didn't. 8 months later, I found them, and in the pages of this book, I'll be sharing them with you. What I discovered through my own experiences and my relationship with hundreds of extremely wealthy people, including some of the wealthiest in the world, is that the money game is a game you can't win. And you'll soon see, no matter how well you play it, and no matter how much money you pile up while playing, the money game always leads to failure in the form of stress, anxiety, pain, loss of some kind, or disillusionment if you play according to the rules, regulations, and structures you were taught growing up. It doesn't work to simply play the money game better and pile up more and more money, which is what most of the experts out there teach. You have to actually bust loose from the money game entirely and start playing a new game with a new set of rules and regulations of your choosing. That's when things truly transform, stay transformed, and life gets really exciting. One more key point before we move on. When reading books, some people start at the beginning and read to the end, sequentially. Others skip ahead, jump around, skim parts and dip down, and read other parts. My intent is to support you in busting loose from the money game. To do that, I have to give you specific puzzle pieces in a specific order and support you in assembling them in a specific way. If you follow my lead, a magnificent big picture will pop into view and you'll be empowered to bust loose from the money game. If you don't, you'll be left with a bunch of funny-looking pieces of cardboard sitting on the table. You'll short-circuit your access to real power, and you'll stay locked in the limitation and restriction of the money game. In short, please be patient. Read the chapter sequentially at the pace you feel inspired to move. Trust me and follow my lead. I know how to bust your loose from the money game, and I can help you do it, but only if you follow the map I'm in a unique position to share with you. You must also understand from the start that I can't bust you loose from the money game in the pages of this book. I can only show you the way, open the portal to a new world, help you jump through the portal, and show you what to do in the new world you'll find on the other side. To actually bust loose from the money game, there's work you must do. I'll show you exactly what to do, when, and how. I'll offer you tremendous support along the way, but it is a journey and it will take time to reach the ultimate destination. It will also require tremendous commitment, patience, persistence, and discipline on your part to arrive. If you make the commitment and do the work, the rewards you'll receive are beyond anything you can possibly imagine right now. I can say without the slightest thought that once you bust it loose, money will become a total non-issue in your life. You'll never again worry about bills, cash flow, or the balance in your checkbook. No more asking, can I afford that? Or should I buy that? No more worrying about the in and outflow of money in your life, about your assets and liabilities, personal income, savings, debt, profits, or taxes. No more of the confusion, stress, and complexity that come with trying to manage, protect, and grow whatever amount of money you piled up. No more working your butt off to make ends meet or carve out a little pleasure or luxury in your life. Once you bust loose from the money game, there will be absolutely no limits or restrictions of any kind for you as it relates to money. No matter how sexy or attractive this may sound to you right now, it isn't even in the ballpark of what really happens and how your life really changes when you bust loose. Busting loose from the money game is something you must experience to understand. I call it the money game for a very specific reason. To discover that reason and the rules of the game, please turn the page to begin Chapter 1.